Welcome back to Tying That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham, and this is my good pal, Tabitha Franck. Say hello, Frank.
I'm a little disappointed you didn't wear your green shirt.
We didn't.
We don't match today. Like that.
You didn't lay it out for me this morning.
I forgot to lay out some clothes for you.
I'm wearing a black shirt or a blue shirt. I think it's blue. I'm wearing this in protest of you not coming to see me in a long time and leaving out my green shirt. All right, what are we doing today?
308. I think this one is called "It Reaches Out." Is that right? Yeah, I think so.
It is. Yeah,
and it's Mark and Hawk writing and our good pal Ken Fink directing.
Kenny Fink behind the camera, and he's doing it. He's doing it well. This is a great episode, and this is definitely a Holden mental health episode. he goes through some shit on this show, but I think he's starting to break in this episode. I don't know why they don't do like the old days. You remember like the 80s Sunday morning or after school specials where they're like, hey, I'm Steven Strait, and I play Holden on TV who's really going through some mental things, but mental illness is not a joke, and if you need help, here's how you reach out. You remember that stuff? Oh,
yeah. Yeah, and they'd give you like the 800 number for like drug abuse or suicide prevention or that kind of stuff. Yeah.
What happened to that? I mean, that was a nice thing that you would see, and you would. I think I remember Brendan Walsh on 90210. I think he did something which really meant a lot to me because I was a big 90210 guy, and so
were you?
No. my sister was. I don't know every episode by heart, but anyway, so so Holden is seeing Miller. Miller is popping up in Holden's psyche, right? And he's popping up and nobody can see him. And I love this. I love this when it happens in movies. It happens in so many movies. I mean, if you think about Ghost or The Sixth Sense, Pet Sematary, it happens in all these times. And they always have that moment of like, they can see them and they're like, am I going crazy? And that moment of realization that nobody else can see them. And I never understood why they just don't ignore it. I mean, Ty, when you hear voices in your head, sometimes you just act like you don't hear it. Do you act like I do?
No, that's why you're always seeing me have conversations by myself.
Oh, you just embrace it?
Oh, yeah. Just go for it. If that ghost is going to bother to take the time to show up and tell me something, I'm going to pay him the respect of having a conversation with him.
But why wouldn't you ignore the dead people? When I have crazy thoughts or weird shit happens, I just ignore it. I try to at least hide it. People are like, do you see him? He's right there. I understand the first time, but once they're like, okay, nobody sees him, I'm seeing shit. So I'm just going to be like, if Patrick Swayze shows up and is trying to talk to me, I'm just going to be like ignoring him like he doesn't exist. I don't want other people to know. And I can't believe they don't. I love the scene in this episode when Holden is doing his brain scans. He got all the shit hooked up to his head, and Amos is standing there, and he looks, and then, what would be funny, what the scene would be like if, this is what I wish the scene was. So Amos walks in, Holden's in the med chair, and he has a blanket that's tucked up to his chin, and he has glassy eyes from tears, and he's reached his point, and Amos comes up, and he takes his hand caringly, and he says, what's going on? What's happening? And he goes, I see dead people.
You know what's great about that is I'm pretty sure that's completely original and no one's ever done that before.
Nobody's ever done that before.
Yeah. What an original idea.
All my ideas original. Like the one, anyway. So Amos shows up. He's losing his fucking mind, and he sees Amos, and Amos says, listen, man, I don't know what's going on with you. I've never seen you act like this, but obviously something going on. I love how Amos is like, look, you can trust me. I'm not going to judge you. Tell me what's on your mind, what's happening. And Holden's like, no, I'm okay. Cut to Amos is like, he's out of his fucking mind, man. He's straight up like gossiping to Alex about what's happening.
Well, when you're trapped on a small spaceship with people for weeks or months at a time, where anything goes wrong and everybody just dies, suddenly the mental health of the people around you becomes very important.
Right.
You know, like, is he like, ha, we can all just kind of make a joke about it, losing his mind? Or is he, we got to tie him down so he doesn't go down to the reactor room and blow the ship up, losing his mind?
Yeah. It's kind of like shooting a TV show, too, with shooting those hours and everything. You start to see people crack a little bit. Yeah. And there's been a few times where you see producers or somebody will come up and say, hey, why don't you take the day off? Why don't you go home and get some R&R? Huh? Yeah.
Really? Have you ever seen somebody get tagged out?
I have seen. I mean, look, the actors are pampered, and but the crew, they work harder than anybody, and what they go through and the shit they go through, and that's why, like, if ever you hear an actor being like, "Jesus Christ, I've been on my feet for like 5 hours in a row," and then you think about it's like, are you fucking kidding me? You see all these lights, you see all the sound, you see the clothes that you're fucking wearing. They were preparing that shit at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yep. While you were still sleeping, getting picked up while they were taking your breakfast order. I think it's uncouth to complain.
And you hear people like, oh, I'm exhausted. This is such a long scene, and we've shot it so many times. I'm just exhausted. I'm like, did you see the guy over there holding a boom over his head every time you shot it? Right. Like, you were holding some shit over your head while you were doing it.
And by the way, they have one scene that day. That poor boom guy is there for 15 hours shooting multiple scenes in the Toronto cold. We go on for days about this. And then, you're outside and you're freezing. And then in between takes, you get to go sit in something that warms you up and gets you going, and you come out there. So then if you're like, man, it's fucking cold out here, you look around these poor bastards that have been out there in the snow the whole time that don't have any warm thing to go into. So Melba wakes up. She's on board the Sung-Un. All right?
Yep.
All right. She's looking right into the eyes of the man that she just killed. Now, I wonder what the effects, is it like waking up from that adrenaline power that she has in her jaw, that little trigger, which we haven't revealed what it is yet.
Yeah.
Is it like waking up with a hangover? Because you and I, or I'll just use me, okay, Ty, but you and I weren't always married. We've had some weird wake ups in some rough situations. Could you imagine waking up with a hangover? And apparently these are like really, really bad hangovers. Basically, all your serotonin, all your adrenaline, everything was used for this one act. And then you just cashed out. And you wake up and you were looking into the eyes of the man you just murdered on this ship. That's got to be really hard to deal with.
Every time that happens to me, I swear it's going to be the last time. And then it happens again. So I haven't learned my lesson.
I can't even remember the last time I woke up next to a dead body.
Yeah.
It's been, people change. So,
well, you have kids now. It's not going to happen as often when you got kids.
No, they wear me out, so I don't get to go out and have any fun. I have to sleep in past 3. That's usually the magic hour. All right, so then they're calling this poor bastard who just got his heart ripped out to go back to the ship. And so Melba's got to think fast, and she double clicks that chin again, and she smashes the bastard's head to get him into the cargo hold.
Yeah.
I mean, Ty, was that necessary? Like, because she could have just she already ripped him apart. She could have just put him in there. Do we have to smash his head like a wallum?
Well, it wasn't fitting in the, by the way, nice Braveheart there. I liked it.
Yeah. And then,
it was, his head wasn't fitting in, and no offense to the lovely actor who plays that part, but he's a man with a sizable skull.
Right.
It's not fitting in there. You gotta crunch it.
Yeah, that poor guy only had one life to give to that role. But it does become kind of funny when she smashes his head. There is a comical moment in that. But she double clicks the jaw again, smashes his head, but she didn't have the same hangover as she did the first time.
Well, the idea is that she probably eventually did. And also the other thing is, this is like inside baseball stuff, but what we talked about was like your body has flushed all those chemicals out. If you reuse the thing right away, it has a much lesser effect.
Kind of like the second line of cocaine?
Yeah. That third bump just isn't going to hit you as hard as the first one did.
But so she kills him. She wakes up. She sees that she's lying there next to him. This was their buddy. This is the guy that they kind of connected with. Then she smashes his head and throws him in the cargo hold. You know what that is, Ty?
Is that cold-blooded, Wes?
Cold-blooded. Okay, so now cold-blooded.
And uses her clothes to wipe up the blood.
Yeah. I like the 80s hairband Cold-Blooded better. I was bringing it more intimately, but I like the 80s hairband. Anyway, so
see, for me the best Cold-Blooded is still the Charlie Murphy True Hollywood Stories Cold-Blooded.
You do that one. Do it.
I can't do it. I don't have the skills, but
Clint, you do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sing for you.
All right. What a bore. What a
that's the Rick James Cold-Blooded.
What a wet blanket that guy is. Yeah, the Rick James Cold-Blooded. That's
still my favorite one. After he punches him in the head with the Unity ring.
Cold-blooded. And then there's a moment where Anna notices that Melba's under stress. She asks if she's okay. Obviously, this girl, Melba, is disturbed and going through some shit.
Yeah.
And there's a moment there where she almost, like, she's so desperate for help that she almost opens up to Anna. And Anna could have stopped a lot of shit if she did, but she ended up doubling down and getting her courage back and blowing up that ship.
Yep.
And it seems as if she's in cahoots with the blind guy on the Rocinante, because he's been fiddling and messing with gadgets or whatever, and then all of a sudden this broadcast comes over where Holden is taking credit for blowing up the Sung-Un and saying that the belt should be the rightful owners of the ring.
Yep.
This is causing all the roar. Has that technology been used yet in The Expanse, where you can just show somebody's face? And
No, not in The Expanse yet, but of course we basically have it now. You know, what they call deep fakes, where using CGI, creating fake versions of people saying stuff, especially if you have a pre-existing recording that you can sort of just modify or augment using CGI. It's really shockingly seamless. It's actually kind of scary how easy it is to do, to create recordings of people just saying whatever.
That is beyond scary. I mean, I wonder what's going to happen with that. What if there's a Franck that comes on and is taking credit for a murder or something like that? But then you're like, what do you know?
Well, now if anybody ever takes credit for a murder in my name, I'm just going to claim it's a deep fake.
Yeah, absolutely.
You gave me an alibi. Thanks. I'm going to go out and commit some murders now. I've got an alibi.
But that is some scary shit. I mean, it's hard to believe or trust anything already, you know, and then now you have people that can do deep fakes. And what if they deep fake presidents or world leaders, or, you know, that's some scary shit. But what deep fakes have you seen? I think I've heard of this. I think I've seen. Explain what it is to me.
I mean, if you just go onto YouTube and search for deep fakes, there's a bunch of ones that have people done, like actors where it looks like the person is saying something and you'll hear their voice saying it, but then you find the original video and they were doing something completely different. But like I said, that's easier. If you have existing video that you can just modify a little bit, it's a lot easier to do than if you have to create it from scratch, obviously. Oh, and by the way, here's some deep info on the episode. Oh, spoilers. The reason why Cohen is on the ship, on the Rossi, the blind guy with the drones, is because he's collecting the material that the deepfakes can be made out of.
You haven't watched that CBS show Evil yet, have you?
No, I haven't seen a network show in probably 20 years.
It's on another streaming network now. I think it.
Yeah, it's on. If it's CBS, it's on CBS All Access. But because I don't care about CBS, I don't have CBS All Access.
This one's actually interesting. There's some episodes worth watching in that. But there's a deep fake through the voice that they use, which is kind of creepy too. So meanwhile, on the Behemoth, Ashford, Drummer, and Naomi are trying to analyze the situation, and Ashford is beating the drum and saying, "Listen, obviously they're going to think that we're a part of this, and if we don't act quick, if we don't shoot the Rocinante down, or at least fire at the Rocinante, then they're going to come after us. We got to act quickly, and we got to do it now." And then you got Naomi and Drummer's here saying, Holden would never do this. That's not Holden. And Drummer's like, it was fucking his face. That was him right there. He was saying it. And so they're going back and forth, and Drummer has to act quickly, and it gets heated in this moment because, and she says, "Remove Naomi." They come and they yank Naomi off the thing, and Ashford's saying, "Do it, whatever." So finally she decides to launch, and the Behemoth fails us. It does. It has a short or something, and the powers don't go up. And then Strathairn has that great line of, "Oh, what a warship."
So this is just a little hint of it, but in the book that this is based on, it is a running gag in the book that the Behemoth is gigantic and the worst warship ever made. Because they took a ship that was originally supposed to be, a colony ship and just strapped a bunch of guns on it and pretended it was a battleship. But it's not. And it's not wired for that. It doesn't have any of the support structures in place. At one point in the book, they talk about firing one of the rail guns, and the engineer is saying, "You cannot fire that rail gun. It will tear itself off the ship if you fire it. The recoil will tear it off the ship." Like everything is like that. It's just it was built too quickly. It was thrown together too quickly. And it just doesn't work. And so when she tries to fire that missile and they send power to the weapon system, the wiring between the reactor and the weapon system just wasn't built for that. It just burns out.
Right. So now we got missiles flying at the Rocinante, and they're in hot pursuit. And Holden is like, what is going through this guy's mind? He's seeing dead people. He's seeing his face come up on the screen, taking credit for an explosion somewhere. He's got to be doubting himself at this moment.
Even Amos has that moment where he's like, this isn't you, is it?
Yeah.
He's like, are you sure this wasn't you? You've been under a lot of pressure. You've been acting weird.
Right. The whole crew is at this pressure point because their leader, their center, their core has been unreliable and has been acting in ways that he's never acted before. Now this thing happens. It's hard for them to trust him or hard for them to believe him. And then he takes off and he's going to the airlock. Amos doesn't know what the fuck this crazy guy's going to do. Holden's not the same. Like, is he going to space himself? He says he's got to talk to Miller. We all know Miller's dead. And so there's that moment of, if there's a great scene down there and they're struggling amongst each other and their fucking spit's flying and sweat's flying. And Amos is like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Talk to me. What's happening? And Holden's like, I need to be in that airlock alone with Miller. You have to trust me. You have to trust me in this. And Amos has that moment. And this is a big moment for Amos and Holden in their relationship. Because Amos has to trust him.
It's that moment where Holden says, all the shit we've been through. And at this point, they've been through a lot together.
Yeah.
All the shit we've been through. Have I ever asked you to trust me?
Yeah.
And Amos has to admit, no, not once. Once have you ever asked me to trust you. I think that's important because I think those moments when you know somebody really well and you spend a lot of time with somebody and you do build up sort of that innate trust, then when they say, this is going to seem weird, you're not going to understand it, but I need you to trust me anyway, that has weight, right? Because they've never had to ask you for that before because you always sort of innately trust them. When they ask you that, you're like, you know what? I don't understand this. This doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, you've earned this. You've earned me giving you that leeway. I think it's a thing that can only develop over time. I think this is the first point in the relationship between Holden and Amos where he could have asked him that. They finally got to that point trust-wise.
But Holden has built up that capital. But every time in my life when I've had a buddy be like, hey, man, just trust me, it's never going well. Yeah, I might have trust issues now. Have you? Can you think of a time when you in your life when somebody wanted to trust you and they gave you that speech? Have I ever asked you to trust? Just trust me, and you do it and it goes bad.
Yeah, of course. Well, people are the kind of people who ask you to trust them all the time are the kind of people who you should never trust. But for example, talking about the show, there have been moments when Narain and I greatly disagreed on some story point or the expression of a certain story point. And I'd say it doesn't work that way, and he'd say no, it's going to work that way, and we go back and forth. Now he is the showrunner, he's the boss, he has ultimate veto power, so he can just shout you down. He would never shout, but he can just overrule you, right? But there has been times, not very many, but a few times where Narain's like, "I'm telling you, this is the version that's going to work on screen. Just trust me." And so far, he's been right. But I defer to his greater experience. He's got a lot of knowledge, but so far he's been right.
Was that the conversation about casting me? You were like, no, that guy, fuck you. And he's like, Ty, I'm just telling you, trust me. And so, and that's the one time he's did you wrong.
You know what? Okay, as long as we're airing our dirty laundry here, honestly, he did do that with your casting because No, not because you're not a good actor, but because I thought you were too short. I was like, oh, Amos has got to be a foot taller than him. Amos has got to be like, practically 7 feet tall. We got to find some great big giant guy, right? Now, that's short-sighted. And what Narain told me, and I have repeated this many times because he was right, he said, let's not cast for height. Let's cast for the best actor. Height doesn't act. And he was 100% right. Height doesn't act. You cast the best actor and then let them figure it out from there. And he was absolutely right. And he was right about you on that. Where I would have gotten some big 7 foot tall galoomp who couldn't act, and it would have been terrible. So yeah, you're 100% right about that.
So Miller tells Holden, and it's a great shot of him when he's hat down and he looks up and he has that moment in his fucking Miller and he says, if you go into the room too fast, the room will eat you. If I was in Hold's position, we would all be fucked. We'd all be burning. We'd all be burning in a missile fire because I'd be like, what? The fuck does that mean? I would not connect. Oh, okay, so Miller is talking in this weird kind of code thing, but and now, Holden does know that this has something to do with the protomolecule because he matched the time codes with Anna's tablet, so he understands that this has something to do with the protomolecule. But the fact that during all this stress, during him seeing dead people, between missiles coming and blowing shit up, all this shit that's going on, he has the clarity of mind to say, oh, wait a minute. If we go through this ring at a certain speed and we're going too fast, that's why the inertia stopping, because it's slowing it down. So we got to go up there and we got to slow it down. If I was the guy, Wes was the guy, we would be fucked in that situation.
Well, now, he does have some additional information because everybody saw the video and other information from the EK going through when Mineo went through and got splattered. He does have that information. So he does know that something about the speed killed Mineo. So when Miller says, if you go into the room too fast, the room will eat you, it's a bit of a leap, but he does make the leap to, there is a safe speed. We don't know what it is, but a safe speed exists. And that's why he just says, go as fast as you can, flip around, and try to get as close to stopped as you can before we go through. Trying to get whatever the slowest speed he can going in there is.
The Expanse does cliffhangers well, and I actually read something about this episode. But so now they're speeding, they're doing the flip and burn, which we love so much. They're slowing down their velocity. They're hitting the ring. Right before they hit the ring, the missile's so close to getting them. And boom, cuts out. Now, I think a cheap way of doing that is then in the episode there. So then you'll tune in to see what happens, right? But now you're stuck in the past. You're not, the pull is what's going forward.
Yep.
And so then you cut back in, and you have that great scene when they're all waking up and Holden's blood is floating and you realize that they survived, and then you look and the missile is right there and it almost got them. And then you cut, because now you're like, whoa, because now you satisfied that the work that you put into watching that episode, and now the pool is what's going to happen through this fucking weird gate, and why are they so down? So now you're focused on the future. Whereas, like, if you would have did that, then you got to start the episode with going back in the past and be like, this is what happened, and then moving forward there. So it's a great way to do a cliffhanger. It's not the cheap way.
It is absolutely how we do cliffhangers in The Expanse. And this goes back to the books. Daniel and I had a lot of conversations about the right way to do a cliffhanger. And Daniel's theory on cliffhangers is one I agree with 100%. Daniel says the worst cliffhanger is the one where it leaves you asking what happened. So like the one you're talking about where like they go through and the missile's behind them and then you cut to black. That's a what happened cliffhanger. Like, did the missile hit them? Did it blow them up? The best cliffhangers are the what happened or what does it mean cliffhangers. So that's what you're talking about, where it's like, we know what happened. The missile came through, but it stopped. And then you cut. So now the question you're asking is not what happened. The question you're asking is, what does it mean?
Oh, that's interesting.
And we try to use that kind of cliffhanger all the time in the books, in the show. Don't hide anything. Don't hide stuff from people. Show them all of what happened and leave them with the question of like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. What does it mean? That's a good cliffhanger, because then it gives you something to think about, right?
Yeah.
And look, the missile comes after him and then you cut to black. That's a bullshit cliffhanger. It's what Sharon Hall calls schmuck bait. Schmuck bait is where like the star of the show is hanging off the cliff and then you cut and you go into the act break. That's a bullshit cliffhanger, because of course he's the star of the show. We know he's not going to fall. That's like schmuck baity cliffhanger, right?
There's no artistry to it.
There's no artistry to that.
You're holding somebody emotionally at ransom. It's like a cheap way to get them to come back.
Yeah. Now a better version of that, he's hanging off the edge of the building, and we're like, oh my God, he could fall, and then he pulls himself up. He sees his best friend running across the roof toward the exit, and you're like, oh my God, did his best friend push him? Then you're wondering, like, what does this mean? Did he fight with his best friend up there? That's better, because we knew he wasn't going to die. He's the star of the show. But the fact that somebody pushed him and he almost died, and maybe it's his best friend that did it, that has some emotional weight. Like, oh my God, is his best friend trying to kill him now? And there's always a better way to do it. There's always a better way to do the cliffhanger. Like you said, I love the way you put that, the artistry of it.
So today, Ty, for our top 5, which might be a first, is I think this is the first time we ever did TV. But today's top 5 because Miller reminds me, Miller is Holden's Al from Quantum Leap. Holden is Scott Bakula and Miller is Al because there's this guy that pops up that only Holden can see, and he needs to get information for Holden about the proto-molecule and what his mission is and what he's doing there. So it made me think of a show that I really loved growing up called Quantum Leap. And Quantum Leap, I think it was like from 89 to 93 or something like that. But I still consider it an 80s show because it has that great 80s opening where it's kind of like, da 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 da, and you see like, like it'll have like flashes from the moment where you see like a face, like he looks in the mirror and you kind of get a sense of the show. He looks in the mirror and it's not his face. And he looks back and they have the beginning teaser when he's like, oh boy. And then they go through. Now, Ty has never seen a Quantum Leap, which is really, really hard for me to believe because it's a sci-fi show and it was such a popular show.
It was a very popular show and a lot of people I knew watched it. And I don't have anything against Quantum Leap. It's not like I ever watched it and decided I didn't like it. I just never watched it. I don't know if it was on a weird time slot for me or what was going on in my life that I just never engaged with Quantum Leap. Because like I said, I knew it. I would be at other people's houses and they'd be watching it. So I've seen like pieces of it. I know what the premise is. I know Scott Bakula was the star. I know all that stuff. I just never sat down and watched it. And I think part of it was not the kind of sci-fi that appealed to me at the time. Because the kind of sci-fi that appealed to me was things with spaceships or, like that kind of thing. Like a sci-fi premise that basically is people running around in various eras of the past is less of a draw for 80s me. Mm-hmm. I was much more into like Star Trek Next Generation kind of stuff where it's like it's spaceships and it's Babylon 5 and that kind those kinds of shows. I just want to make it clear that I'm not against Quantum Leap. Like it's not like I watched it and didn't like it. I just never got around to watching it.
Well, there's rumors that there's going to be some more Quantum Leap in the future. So maybe
because Hollywood ran out of ideas, we just have to keep remaking the same shit over and over again. Of course, there will.
So maybe you still got time to catch up. Now, our producer Clint he likes to call himself a leaper. That's the ultimate Quantum Leap fans. They call themselves leapers.
That's what we call ourselves in the fan community.
Or is it leper?
We call ourselves leapers.
Or is it leper?
Right. Other people call us lepers.
When everybody was saying, don't talk to him, he's a leper, you thought they were saying he's a leaper because he's a big Quantum Leap fan. So Donald Belisario, I know you might not be familiar with Quantum Leap, but I know you're a big fan of some of the other shows he did.
Okay. What else did he do?
Battlestar Galactica. He wasn't the showrunner, but he was a writer on it.
The original one?
The OG.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Airwolf.
Oh, I loved Airwolf, man.
Airwolf, man.
Yeah.
And fucking Magnum P to the motherfucking I. Magnum PI.
Okay. Yeah. So he did some good shows.
Yeah, he did some great stuff.
Yeah.
And so the story of it is he was a writer on Battlestar Galactica. It was canceled. And what's interesting is about Battlestar, the original Battlestar, is the fans did a campaign very similar to what they did in The Expanse. Yeah. And they ended up getting the show to come back. So him and the creator were going to come up with an idea for the new Battlestar Galactica. And their premise was that the characters go back in time and fix wrongs that happened in the past. They have this quantum leap and they go back and they fix the wrongs. But ABC slashed the budget, so they ended up doing Gallica 1980. Did you see that show?
It was terrible.
I didn't see it.
It was so bad.
What was the premise of it?
That basically the Galactica comes to like 1985 Earth. And it was truly, truly dreadful.
It was them trying to continue a show with no money.
With no money.
No money. So, but he always kept that idea, and then he used that idea to create Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I mean, I knew the premise. I didn't know that history though. I didn't know that that was the original idea for the 1985 Battlestar Galactica. So
some of the things that he talks about, which is kind of, so he had this interview where he kind of answers a lot of questions that fans have been debating or whatever. And so there was this big theory that maybe that Sam was dead, that he died during there was like an explosion in the facility, that he died. And so it was his ghost coming up in other people's lives and making things better. That is not true. It was really Sam. It was really him making these leaps. That was all happening in real time. Oh, Clint, do you remember the quantum leaps where there was the evil leapers?
There was a girl who showed up several times. For the first time you see her, he gets super excited because he's like, oh, there's another time traveler. Let's get all horny and help people. And she's like, haha, now you're horny, but I'm hurting people. And then she returns a couple other times.
Yeah. So she was like the reverse of him. She would go to people's lives and make it worse or destruct things other than him. That was not a Belsario idea, and he wasn't a huge fan of it. That was some other writer in the room that did that. But some people love it. Some people were big fans of the evil leaper.
Can I say, my memory of the show is that Sam was like this real everyman, but 4 minutes ago, I just pulled up the wiki, and can I tell you that the description of this main character is that he has an IQ of 267. He's a master of judo, karate, Muay Thai, and Taekwondo. He speaks 7 languages, including 4 dead languages, and has a Nobel Prize. And then becomes a time traveler.
God. That sounds like you're reading my wiki.
It makes me like it so much more.
And he's always singing. He sings all the time on the show.
Oh, yes. It says here he plays piano guitar, is a good dancer, sings baritone, and his favorite song is John Lennon's Imagine. This is a very good wiki.
It sounds like he's the world's most interesting man. So this is interesting. Belisario served in the Marine Corps, and he served with Lee Harvey Oswald. He knew him. He did an episode with Lee Harvey Oswald in it. I don't remember. I don't know if I saw that episode, and I don't know if Sam leapt in there.
I want to say the episode literally is Sam jumps in, and he's like, "Oh, where am I?" And he is Lee Harvey, and he's in the book depository.
I haven't seen that, but
I have not seen this show since the early 90s, but that's my memory, is he leaps into Lee Harvey Oswald. Let me look this up.
But he does say, he's like, look, that's why I never was a conspiracy theorist on the JFK, because I knew the man, and I think he was capable of what he did.
I mean, they do train Marines how to shoot.
I have found the episode. It was in 1992. He leaps into Lee Harvey Oswald but Lee Harvey Oswald in 1957. He begins leaping randomly throughout the life of Lee Harvey Oswald, and matters become complicated when Sam's mind becomes tangled with Oswald's.
Interesting.
Belisario clearly was a veteran because there are so many military episodes of this show. He's always leaping into military conflicts or into veterans.
Yeah. There's some good Vietnam stuff in there.
There's one where he leaps into the body of a double amputee, Vietnam vet, double amputee, and it was before Forrest Gump. And I recall seeing Forrest Gump going, that's like that episode of Quantum Leap.
You know, Quantum Leap does have a little bit of that Twilight Zone thing where every, you really, once you go back and watch the Twilight Zone, you see how many ideas have been taken and kind of made into movies, how many ideas have been used and gone on. Segue real quick. When the missile, the last shot of the Rocinante, when it's frozen and the missile's right in front of it, it reminded me of that 1980s. Have you ever seen this, Ty? 1980s Twilight Zone, where the lady in it was somebody that got no respect. Her kids didn't listen to her. It felt like in life she couldn't get anything done. Nobody just kind of glossed over her. She found an amulet in her backyard. Like this amulet.
I know exactly the one you're talking about, where she could freeze time.
Yes, and she puts it on, and every time she said, shut up, the whole world froze.
Yep.
And it was this great episode. It had a great fun and games moment because she went to the grocery store, and she'd like, shut up, and she'd get the food she wanted. So it had a good job of setting up all the things. She couldn't get her kids to shut up. Now she can shut them up. She can get the food she wants. She even saw some handsome guy that she kind of snuggled up with him when she was walking by. And it was a really fun episode, and this always stuck with me. But at the end, they're in a nuclear war, and they're under attack, and they're listening to the radio, and they're saying, incoming, it's coming, the missile's coming. And she goes, shut up, shut up. And she's crying in tears. She walks outside, and 12 feet from her street, it's a nuclear missile that's about to start. And so if she says, because how she got time going, she would say, shut up, it would freeze. And then she'd say, okay, you can talk again. And then the world start back again. Yep. Now she's going to be stuck in that time period forever, because if she says, okay, you can talk again, the missile's going to explode on the street. And I've always thought about what to do in that situation. And it's like, would she try to like get to the missile and dismantle it somehow? But I'm sure she doesn't know how to dismantle a nuclear missile. So she's screwed.
She has nothing but time.
Yeah, I mean, she could go, like take a boat over to like New Zealand, I guess.
Oh yeah, and that's a good idea. Like load her family up or leave them, depending on who you are. Go get a boat. first go rob a bank, get plenty of money, and then go to a boat, go to New Zealand, and say, okay, start again. And then, yeah, good idea. Only a mind like yours, Ty. So here's my pool, Clint. The Wrong Stuff, where Scott Bakula comes in as a monkey. Or as
the chimp episode. He's like
Forgive
a
me.
space chimp. Yeah. That's a great one.
Yeah. He jumps into an ape. Sorry.
An
ape. That was a great one. Do you remember Catch a Falling Star?
No, which one's that?
He comes in and it's the middle of this theater production, and then he has to go and perform. The guy was like a drunk or an alcoholic, and he was about to ruin his career and fall off the stage or something, and he had to go in and make the show go on.
They're doing Don Quixote or Man of La Mancha or something like that. It's like a Don Quixote story, and then I do recall that one.
What was cool about it was like their musical episode.
Yeah,
it was basically, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer had their musical episode. It was basically them coming on and doing and Scott Bakula did all his singing and everything, which is really good, actually.
Well, they would find any opportunity. There's one episode where he leaps into a blind piano player, and he has to be. There's one where he leaps into like a 1950s like rockabilly guy, as I recall. Like, he was always leaping into musicians.
Mm-hmm. And then the next one is Future Boy, and that is, do you remember that one?
That's a great one.
Future Boy
the
is
sidekick on like a 1950s like TV show, like sci-fi TV show.
It was a 1950s sci-fi TV show, and the guy, his partner, whatever, was you didn't know if he was insane or just eccentric. He thought he could travel through time, and then Scott became close. Sam became close with him, and it's basically an episode of mental health. And then The Color of Truth. This was after Driving Miss Daisy. So it's basically, he comes in, he's the chauffeur of an older lady. Did you ever see that one?
I remember that one, and it is so Driving Miss Daisy that I need to know which one came first. I'm looking right now. Driving Miss Daisy was 89, so Driving Miss Daisy's first. Okay.
And then Shock Theater, where he comes in and he's a mental patient. What's great about this...
That episode is basically... It's just One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, basically.
Yeah. And that's what Belisario was saying, is like, you tell all these different stories. It's kind of like what Serling said in with Twilight Zone. You can tell all these different stories with a sci-fi show and different, because he's commenting about race, he's commenting about mental health, all these things at once. But Shock Theater was really cool because it has a twist at the end. It blew my mind because they had to shock him. Remember, he had to have the lady shock him to get in to make the leap. And when he did, something electrical happened. He ended up being the hologram, and Al was the one that was real. And then Jimmy, you've seen that one. That one's probably
so. Jimmy, I did not know the title of Jimmy. You reminded me. Yeah, Jimmy's the one where he leaps into a young man with Down syndrome and has to keep him from being institutionalized.
And he was
something like that. I don't recall.
You're right. He was a dock worker, and he had to. So MIA was an episode that was probably like the season before the last. And MIA was basically he came in and he was trying to figure out his mission, but Al was like, "No, you have to go see this girl." And this girl, her husband is missing in action, and she's gonna at some point give up on him, think she's dead, and then she's gonna move on and marry somebody else, and they're never gonna be together again. And they're each other's true love, and they should be together. And throughout the episode, Sam's thinking that something's wrong. This doesn't feel like this is a mission or what he's supposed to be there for. The reality is that wasn't his mission, but he was just at the same place and time, and that the soldier that was mission in action was actually Al. And Al was trying, and this happened to Al. He lost his wife because he was mission in action. She moved on and married somebody else. And when he came up, he spent the rest of his life being brokenhearted and never moving on. And she was brokenhearted because that was the love of her life. So he was trying to get her to do that. And Sam, he couldn't. He said he was sorry, but this isn't the mission that he was there to do. And then they have this scene at the end where they're dancing to Georgia on My Mind, which was their song, this beautiful scene that they're dancing, which brings me to my next one, which is Mirror Image. And Mirror Image was the last Quantum Leap episode. And Sam realized that he can control his leaping. Now, a lot of these I haven't seen in years, so if I'm, forgive me for all you leapers out there. But he realized in the episode that he can control his leaping, and what he ended up doing is he leaped back to that episode, back into his wife's life, and said, "Do not give up on him. He's going to come back, and he's going to be there." And then the credits roll and it says that Al and her were married and they've been married for like 39 years and they're still married. And then the next credit that scrolled is Sam never made it home. He's never been home. And you're like, what? And that's the last line written of all of Quantum Leap, because all the audience, the whole show, you're like, you want him to go home. You want him to make it home.
Well, literally the opening credits say, and every time hoping his next leap will be the leap home. That's what they keep saying. But what you've just explained is that, because the entire question is, why is he leaping from time to time? And what is this like cosmic force that wants him to right these wrongs? And we never knew. But you're saying that he was controlling it himself, like subconsciously. So if he chose to never go home, it's because he's still traveling through time, righting wrongs, because he is truly the world's greatest man with an IQ of 267, master of Taekwondo, Judo, and player of guitars.
And singer.
I love this guy.
Yeah, and the last one's the leap home, which he ends up leaping into himself in Indiana. And I can't remember who he's trying to help there. Do you remember that one, when he leaps into himself? That's when he sung that Imagine All the People to the little girl.
I know there's one where he leaps home, and I don't know if it's this episode, but he leaps back into his teenage self to win a big basketball game. I do remember that.
Oh, that's right. Here's the thing. His little sister ends up marrying an alcoholic who gets up getting beat to death. His brother dies in Vietnam, and he leaps back and has all this family tragedy, but he finds out that his mission isn't to help any of these people, it's to win a basketball game. That's right. I remember that, yeah.
Well, who decides what these missions are?
Ziggy.
Well, no, because what we've now learned is that he was controlling it all subconsciously. So it was always his secret self making these decisions. Isn't that what you just said? He decided.
So here's the thing, though. Like if
was his consciousness Ziggy?
No, so Ziggy was a real computer,
the master computer
in the
that
late
would give him
90s, which was the future at the time of the show, right?
Right.
How does Ziggy know that these are things that need to be fixed?
So this is a great question, because this is as somebody who's never watched the show. The premise is Sam's mind has been thrown back in time. For whatever reason, the computers and whatnot from the Quantum Leap project in the late 90s, which Sam himself invented, are able to track his consciousness through time, and they are able to send back an incorporeal hologram of his best friend Al.
Yeah, no, I know about the hologram guy.
So Ziggy is a supercomputer that is tracking, essentially it's attached to the internet. So when he makes minute changes in the past, Ziggy is tracking those changes and can say, oh, when you did that, this changed. And it can tell, then that can be communicated to Sam in real time. So Ziggy is simply telling him how his changes have affected the future.
So they're fixing all the problems they created?
Frequently.
No, they're fixing probably. But Sam can only travel into his lifespan. So he can't travel before he was born, or he can't travel past when he was dead. He can only travel within his life, even though we don't know what his lifespan is. What I always wondered about, so whenever he leaps into somebody's body, they have the actual person that he leaps into, they go into a waiting room. And I think and Ziggy's always like, hey, this person's really freaking out in the waiting room, and he gets information from the actual person that he leaped into. He gets information from them in the waiting room. And I always wonder, what is that like? And Belisario, he said that what he thought about is that these are all the people that, because they don't really remember what happens once they get put back in their body, and they don't remember what that Scott Bakula did for them. They're just kind of confused, and there's a little bit of, and he says he thinks that's where all the alien kidnappings, like the alien sighting, like being took.
This guy is causing problems in the past that he then has to go fix himself. And he also created the alien abduction phenomenon by doing
the alien abduction.
This guy is creating way more problems. This isn't a hero. This guy's like a time terrorist.
Listen, he's leaping through time. It's important that he occasionally diddles some buttholes while he's out there, and that is going to make it seem like it's alien.
And here's my question. Here's my question. If this guy is subconsciously controlling where he goes in time, as Wes seems to be saying, why didn't he just always leap into porn actors? Right? Like, it seems like if you're going to leap into people,
because he's a pure soul.
Because
This is not Ty Franck.
Now we know what Ty would do with those powers.
IQ 267, Judo Master.
But here's now, Ty. Now we know exactly where you would go. Think about all the good karma old Sam is putting out there, because he's going over and over and over and writing people's lives and going through all these things to help people
and making them think they were abducted by aliens.
No, that's what Bill Starr said. Maybe those are the guys that thought they were abducted by aliens when they come back.
Yeah, that's going to help somebody's life.
Yeah, you're right, huh? They spend the rest of their life being traumatized and they've been abducted by an alien.
I was abducted by aliens. No, you're just crazy.
But what a crazy, bizarre premise that's so ahead of its time. But also, when has there been a show that's been uplifting and positive like that, that constantly like is an upward movement every time you watch it? It there's some really everything is so cynical, and so there's no highway to heavens anymore. So, sorry, fans, U8 fans. Clint, something happened to him. He's off the recording. So Ty and I are just going to finish out this show, and I think this is going to be a fun list because Ty hasn't seen any Quantum Leaps, so I get to choose. But I think The Leap Home is my favorite. Mirror Image is number 2. MIA is number 3. Shock Theater is number 4. And The Wrong Stuff is number 5. Yeah. So that's my list.
Well, I wish I had an opinion on any of those things.
And that is the correct list, by the way.
I know that Scott Bakula went on to be Captain Archer in a Star Trek show, which I was really hoping to make Clint sing the theme song for the audience of that show.
You know what quote we forgot for our quote episode? And I saw it on the message board.
A million of them?
A million of them. But one that I'm ashamed of is, I came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm almost out of bubblegum.
All out of bubblegum.
Oh, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Yep. I came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. So that was our episode 8, season 3, the Quantum Leap episode. Thank you guys for hanging out. We had a good time, and we love you dearly.
I love less than half of you, half as well as you deserve.
Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.